There it is.
All right, and good.
Okay. Okay, we all set, Chris?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so let's call the meeting to order, excuse me, at 6:06. First, as always, thank you, Chris, for managing the tech, which is increasingly challenging lately, and taking the minutes and providing data that we needed for tonight's meeting, which, we really do appreciate. Thank you. Okay, Bev and Claudia and Patrick are here, and Aaron is on a business trip and hopefully will be joining us from halfway across the country soon. Are there any citizens waiting to speak, Chris? Probably not.
There is a member of the public, but if you want to speak, please raise your hand and we'll unmute you.
Yep.
Okay, no.
Okay. Okay, then, oh, Penny is not here.
No, she's not actually.
I did check and she did receive the email.
Huh. Yeah, she was on the email. Okay, if Penny comes in later, then I will circle back and ask her for her report from the Friends. But for now, we'll let that go. And nope. And that brings me to Chairperson's report. Okay. It's going to be brief. I watched a listening session with the Lieutenant Governor and members of the State Assembly and Senate a week ago. Really good discussion, included the huge expenditures for ebooks that all libraries are experiencing, generated by the practices of book publishers in Connecticut, intellectual freedom and attempts at book banning, and the need for school librarians in all schools. The session was, as Ellen Paul from CLC said, unprecedented because the legislators invited librarians to speak to them. We didn't have to ask them to listen. Elizabeth attended this important session in person, and a recording of the session is now available, so I will send it to everyone so that you will be able to watch the session through the link. It's through the state's CTN network. And as always, I want to thank our staff and leadership team for all they're doing under extremely difficult circumstances. We are really blessed with an extraordinary staff. They provide exceptional service, and they do that while treating every single person who comes to the library fairly and respectfully, and they provide care and dignity. And we do appreciate that more than we can say, and I think more than we sometimes show. So thank you. And with that, I am going to call on Elizabeth for director's report.
Thank you, Chair. I was going to start with, Chris, can I please share my screen? I was going to start with just a little preview overview of stats from the last month. That will be shared in the town manager's report. You can see we had in November 49 programs with 1,376 attendees. Online resource use, we had 1,320 instances of that. Our digital circulation was 2,757. and our visits to our tech space, which we're calling BPL Tech Express. I see I didn't update that. At 330 Park, 747 visits, and to BPL Atrium, 1,134 visits. So our numbers, we're still seeing a lot of people. We hope to see more people, so please continue to tell people how to find us. And as the chair mentioned, a few of us were at the listening session at the state capitol. Assistant Director Wilkos was with me as well. And it was really great to see our legislators be so interested in the major issues affecting the profession and by extension, our public. The ebook one, which I know I spoke a lot about last year, I really thought last year was going to be the year for the ebook legislation to pass. And for our new board members, Claudia, it's essentially libraries pay a lot more money for ebooks than the public. And we spend this money on ebooks, and then after 2 years, the ebooks are gone. And our CLC executive director gave the example of public roads. Imagine if we laid all of the asphalt for roads at a price that was way more than what the public could get it for. And then after 2 years, the roads were gone. And that's essentially the problem we're seeing. But the legislators really want to take this on and make it a more fair playing field for public libraries. And then also the intellectual freedom and what that means. Essentially, our public gets to choose what they read, and the number of challenges to books across the state. We had some great speakers, and I want to share one especially because the library director from Old Lyme spoke when they had some materials challenged, and Old Lyme has around 7,000 residents. It was interesting to hear her talk about how some of her library board members didn't fully understand what was happening. So when they were getting these calls from the public, didn't handle them correctly. And essentially anybody can make a recommendation for a book to be reconsidered, and what that means. So I'm going to resend around that policy just so the board can all read it and just be prepared, because it's going to happen to us. It's not if it's going to happen, it's when it's going to happen. We just all want to make sure we're on the same page with how to react to that. Okay. And then next, I wanted to talk about some highlights from last year. I know we spoke about the state report. I want to thank some of our staffers for putting together some of the numbers so they're more easily digestible. And I just wanted to share them here. So for early literacy, last year, that's our ages 0 to 5 crowd. We 189 programs reaching over 6,000 attendees. Our ages 6 to 11 elementary, we had 53 programs reaching over 3,000 attendees. Our teen programs, this was a high that we've never seen before, 92 programs reaching over 2,100 attendees. And that's thanks to our teen advisory board. Our adult programs, 351 programs with over 4,700 attendees. Altogether, that was over 700 programs with 17,000 attendees last year. Bravo to all of our programming staff for those numbers and for really bringing programs that our public wants to hear and learn about. We had 133,000 materials borrowed last fiscal year, over 8,000 library card holders, 31,000 plus articles downloaded from our databases, our research databases. Over 15,000 reference questions were answered. 8,700 ebooks and e-magazines read. Again, that goes back to some of the issues with ebook funding, and our numbers, the amount of tax dollars we get for these materials have kind of flatlined, but the costs are going up. So it means longer wait times for these types of materials. And again, that's something that we're hoping that the state legislature takes on next session. Public computer sessions, this is a huge one, 17,000. This is reflective of the digital divide, and this does not show all the staff time that goes into these public computer sessions. That's behind the scenes, making sure that we have the computers, that they're working, the network is working, Chris Chris probably dreams about these issues because they're just all the time. There's always computer problems, always needing to be fixed. So that's one part of it. But the other part of it is the staff time involved with helping people use the computers, get to where they need to go, signing in, using email, printing, etc. So again, bravo to the staff for that number. It's a huge one. Visits to our website, over 28,000. Our website is part of our BPL online presence. And then visitors to the library, just over 88,000. And then finally, these were the building hours open to the public at 2,300. So that's a little idea of those numbers. Does anybody have any questions about that?
I think there might be a typo on that original chart. I hate to go back to that, but there's in October, program attendance, it's like 23,000 something.
Oh, yes, so that is an issue. We're working with the state library to remedy that.
Okay.
The way that they count certain things has thrown our numbers off. So yeah, thank you, Bev. We are
Okay.
in contract trying to figure out how to make that number make more
Okay.
sense.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions about that? Patrick?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Elizabeth. It's always so, I love to see the statistics. It's so empowering, to see those numbers. Excuse me. So my quick question is, on the tech visits over to 330 Park, is that just, they're not open weekends, right? So those visits are only during the week, Monday through Friday.
Yes.
Okay. And, the library cards that are issued, I think it was over 8,000, right? Do you
Yes.
guys track what percentage of them belong to adults? What percent or what number are adults? What number are children? Do you know those breakdowns? Or
Chris, can you answer that?
because that's like more than a third of the total Bloomfield population. And figure we have 22,000 roughly, and you have over 8. So that's
Yes.
almost half.
And that's one part of our strategic plan that we have been very intentional with, empowering people with getting a library card in their hands, especially our young folk.
Yeah.
So I want to give a huge nod to our youth librarians for that. But yeah, that number is huge. And I think a lot of that growth is with our young people. But
Okay.
Chris, do we have that kind of data?
We can get it very easily. In fact, when you run that report on a monthly way, it breaks it down by age groups. We don't use a teen user at the moment though, so we wouldn't be able to know. I think we know anyone under 18 though. As children, we probably have them in. I just ran that, but I don't know where I put it because I was working really fast. But we can get that.
I was just curious if you
get
could
that.
break that
And
down
it
by.
was only for the month, so I'd like to get it for like the whole breakout, and we'll
Sure.
we'll look at it. If I wasn't doing the minutes right now, I'd do it right now. But
But Patrick, that's a great question and something we should look at. So we will look at that and then get
Okay.
that for the board.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, thanks
But-
so much. That was good.
And
Will
Patrick,
you'll be sending that out, right? Because I don't think I saw the draft of that yet. Or did you send it?
we did send that, the library, the state report.
Yeah, the state report.
Yes, we did
Okay,
send
I
that.
don't remember seeing that. If I missed it.
Think it was with last month's agenda.
Oh, looks like Claudia's holding it up there. Okay, I'll go back and check. I apologize. I was thinking of a separate email, but I guess it could have been with last month. Okay, I'll go back and check on that. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. And again, the library card number to me is one of the most important stats we keep because again, we know that there's people in our community who still do not know that the library card is free. Library cards are free and everyone is entitled to them. And that is, if there's one message we can always be sharing, it's that, and with the goal of, a dream would be for every person in our community to have a library card. So we continue to strive for that as a long-term goal. So, and also, when Prosser Library opens, our new amazing library, it would be so great if we got to 10,000 cardholders, which I think is a very realistic goal. Any other questions about the numbers?
No, I would just mention that in Connecticut, that is not the trend. Bloomfield's numbers have been steadily climbing. Pretty much the entire state is declining everywhere. We are one of the few, if not the only library that has increasing numbers, let alone increasing exponentially. So that's really huge.
Yeah, and again, bravo to the staff for making that happen. On February 3rd, we're going to be celebrating Take Your Child to the Library Day at 330 Park. Miss Nicole has a lot going on. 11 a.m. Mr. Magic with a magic show, 1:30 an instrument petting zoo with the Hartford Symphony. And we're also trying to get a bookmobile with our friends Read to Grow for elementary and middle school students to be at 330 Park as well. So there's a lot going on and we're really excited. So mark your calendars for that. That's one of a key date for libraries is Take Your Child to the Library Day, and libraries across the state will be doing things and we will again be participating with that. I'm going to save some of the other items for further down in our list. And so, yes, I'm done.
Elizabeth,
Yes.
I was at the library today and there is a book drop.
Oh, I'm
Yes.
sorry for
Yes.
not mentioning.
No, but it's so
Thank
wonderful.
you. The biggest news that I completely forgot was we have a book drop and it is open 24/7 and it is right next to where the buses line up at BPL Atrium. So anyone who's been holding on to books and or has not been able to make it here or hasn't wanted to carry their books from the entrance up to where we are located, you can drop your materials off there 24/7. It's big. It can handle as many things as you have. So just bring it, drop it off. And yes, thank you, Bev, for reminding me about that. That's a big one. And we're going to be doing some full court press on that too, to share that out in the community that we finally have that book drop.
So literally big news.
And
It
it's
is
funny,
big.
Bev, because you saw it without knowing, and that's the good thing. People have been dropping it off and we haven't really announced it yet. And in fact, when we put it in, Elizabeth hadn't seen it and I had just gotten, was getting acquainted with it, and I went to get her, and within the 15 minutes between us and me going to get her, there were 5 items in there. So that's the good thing. People are seeing it.
It's amazing. Great. It's amazing. People, if you build it, they will come. It's so true in every single way. But it looks good. It looks sharp. Yeah.
And I'll add that we wound up, when that incident happened in Bloomfield this past week, I was frantically trying to go to a doctor's appointment and we could not get out of Bloomfield. Every intersection we went to, we were being turned back in circles. So we finally cut through Cigna. Is that Cigna Way? The little internal road. And lo and behold, we got partway up and there was a sign with BPL and an arrow saying, go here. And I was all excited. That plus the fact that we finally made it to Simsbury Road. But I was so pleased to see the sign, and a great morning because there was an entire huge mob of cars all cutting through Cigna trying to get out of town. And so they all went past the sign saying that BPL is there. So that was nice, that, and the word spreads. Once somebody has seen it, they'll say, oh yeah, it's there. You can see it. There's a sign when you drive through. So that's good. Okay. And thank you, Elizabeth. Almost forgot. And for some reason, I have lost that piece of my page. Okay. Okay. If there are no more questions for Elizabeth or comments right now, then we can move on to old business. First item is discuss and possibly take action on paid sick leave for part-time staff. And as I've reported previously, I did speak with Mr. Shank about this some time ago. I have not heard back yet. He had mentioned that he would be discussing this with Human Resources. And maybe, Elizabeth, maybe you could give the trustees a summary of where we seem to stand currently.
Okay, so I did check back in with the interim town manager last week. And he again responded with issues over the definition of a library assistant. And the HR director weighed in saying that they had indeed reached out before to the Connecticut Department of Labor about this, and hearing back that library assistants are not covered. However, when we had reached out to our town attorney about this issue, it comes down to the fact of job duties and service workers. And our staff are not unionized, meaning there is a lot of overlap with job duties. And while, yes, it says librarian in the actual definition, there are tasks that our library assistants are doing that would fall underneath those tasks. So therefore, by extension, they should be receiving this benefit. Furthermore, we are one of the very few libraries in the state that do not give this benefit to all part-time library staff. You know, like when I know I surveyed all the LCI libraries, West Hartford does it, Avon, for all of them do it. We are one of the few ones. So as we are talking about, again, morale issues, staffing issues, these are library staff that work side by side. So I'm hoping that with that legal opinion, the interim town manager looks that over again, and hopefully we can get some headway on that. But you know, the interim town manager and the HR director, this just happened last week. So I don't know how the board wants to proceed from here.
I think probably we need to provide, was that Mr. Ryan that our town attorney had brought in for an opinion?
Yes, William Ryan.
Yeah, he's a labor attorney. And it was his opinion that we definitely do need to stop excluding the part-time people. And when you read the law, that's actually clear in there that it says that it's not just titles that are listed, and that it has to do with people's function, not the definition of their position, not the name of their position, that it's what they do. So if they are doing the same function as librarians, then they deserve the benefit. And the law had changed relatively recently. So I have a feeling we're kind of caught in catch-22 territory here. And we probably need to just keep pursuing it. I don't know if it was absolutely clear in the communications between HR and the Labor Department. I also wonder if there are state programs for sick leave. And I'm not sure that we aren't somehow crossing over so that the state thinks we're asking if state benefits would go to our workers. And that may be what they're saying is like, no, they don't qualify for their program. But certainly Bloomfield is never precluded from providing this benefit. And the thing is that even though there have been numbers going around about, oh, it would cost this, it would cost that, in actuality, it would not. You know, if someone calls in for their once or twice a month shift and they're not going to be there, we're not calling somebody to come in and cover for them. We're not paying someone else for that shift as well. There isn't, we don't have people to staff the shifts now, let alone additional coverage. So that's one of the kind of paper numbers that I think often goes with budgeting, but we have staffers who have worked for BPL for a very long time, and it affects their lives. And I think we need to keep pursuing it. And it also affects staff retention, because if someone sees a job opening elsewhere where this is going to be one of the benefits they would receive by switching to another position in another town, they will. And if someone is interviewing for a position here and they hear that we don't have this, that's that much more likely that they would not accept a position once we're in a position to hire anybody for open positions. So I think all of that suggests we need to keep trying. And, you know, given that we're changing town managers and we just changed town attorney and all of this, we may be back kind of at the first square of the conversation, because we're starting over with, you know, different people coming and going at different times. So I think we need to keep at it and, you know, keep trying. If nothing else, I think we owe it to everybody on our staff to just keep trying. So, Patrick.
Madam Chair, yes, thank you. I guess my question would be, maybe this is to HR or to the town manager's office, I'm not sure, but what is the specific thing that they need from either the town attorney or Ryan and Ryan attorneys to make this happen? Like, what are they looking for? Just an opinion, a legal opinion? Do they need some piece of paper that states that the law says we need to do A, B, or C? I mean, I guess I'm not clear what exactly they need to move this forward and make it happen. So I don't know if that's something we could go back to HR and ask them, what specific thing are you looking for to prove to, or maybe not prove, but to validate that this should take place for our employees who are part-time, that this should be allowed. So if it's a clarification of the definition, is that all they're looking for? I'm just not clear on, you know, because it seems like it just keeps going around and around and around. So I'm just not clear on what do they need, or what documentation, what legal opinion would be enough to make the case for allowing our staff to receive paid sick leave whom are part-time.
Maybe that is a question for HR. What because what we're hearing is the state says we don't have to do that. Excuse me. I'm not sure if that's something that's being addressed by saying, you know, the function is exactly the same. We have a law that says it's not title dependent. We have an opinion from the labor attorney that the town uses.
Yeah, Ryan and Ryan, yeah.
Yeah. So given
what else do they
that,
need? I'm just like
what exactly is the holdup? And I know that
Yeah.
sometimes it's a question of, well, we don't have to do that. I think that the law suggests that maybe we do, but beyond that, there's also we should. You know, these are our staff. It's a benefit. Isn't going to, you know, we're not saying, please give us more money for our budget for this. I know that HR's opinion was that we had to have a budget modification for it, but we're not really adding money that we're going to spend. You know, it's one of those paper kinds of things, because we're certainly not calling anybody in. We don't have anybody to call, even if we wanted to. And for somebody who works, you know, a shift here and there, or is just out briefly, we're not calling somebody else to cover that. That would be the expenditure. Yeah, Elizabeth?
I should be clear that former town manager Hawthorne, so I worked with him when we were doing this for the budget modification, and he had wanted to do it that way so that all the part-time employees would get this, not just the library people. Yeah. And so that's kind of what happened there. And then, you know, as we all know, he left before the budget process was over, but really he was in agreement that we needed to do this, but it was like, let's do this in all one kit and caboodle. Yeah,
Somehow I think there's so much going on that we're kind of stuck in between things. And
Yeah.
we're certainly not the only people who are kind of overwhelmed with more work than people. I know HR is behind. I was reading the town manager's report that came out. And if you look at the figures, there are departments saying this many activities are opened, but they're not closed. And there are hundreds, and in some cases more than hundreds, that they're trying to get to also. And I certainly empathize because we're in a bind, and I know that other departments are as well for various reasons. So I think part of it is also just everybody is busy, and it's difficult for everybody. But I do think it's worth us continuing to pursue.
Mhm.
If we don't ask, it won't happen. So we have to keep asking. So we'll do that. I was kind of hesitating to call Mr. Schenk this month because he's almost finished, I think.
Mhm.
And I think he's going on vacation soon. And I'm pretty sure this is the last thing that he wants to have in his mind. Like, oh boy, then there was that. And I don't know the status of who's where and what, but hopefully soon we would have a permanent town manager, and then we'd be able to kind of sit down and address this and say, we've been trying for a long time to get this. People deserve it. On many levels, it's a good idea. And how do we make this happen? And just keep going. Hopefully we'll have someone who sees it the same way as Mr. Hawthorne, because if some people have the benefit and some people don't have the benefit, that's not okay. It depends which department you're on, whether you have part-time sick leave. We need to have this for town, and it's a benefit to the town because people are more likely to want to be here, stay here, come here, if this is available to them. Part-time positions are not always the easiest, and if somebody else has it, somebody will leave or somebody won't come here. So okay, I think we should pursue that. Are there any other comments? Okay, so we'll just keep going. Oh, secondly, old business. Discuss and possibly take action concerning employee appreciation. So I'm not sure where we are on this at this point. I know you had people trying to put something together, Elizabeth.
yes, so we are hoping to have a retirement. We're hoping to have a holiday party on December 22nd, the morning of December 22nd, in honor of Zuzana, who is retiring after 43 years of service. So we're going to kind of do a 2-for-1. Zuzana has asked that we not go too overboard, and we will oblige her with that. But on that front, I wanted to ask the board for $1,000 in funds to do both of those things: the employee appreciation for the holiday party, and then also for Zuzana.
Okay. Somebody like to make a motion so we can discuss this?
So moved.
Was it? Oh, Bev, thank you.
Yes, Bev. Thank you.
Okay, so Bev has moved. Do we have a second?
I'll second it. Or Claudia second.
Okay, Claudia second. Thanks, Patrick. So Claudia seconds. Okay. Discussion?
Madam Chair?
Yeah, Patrick.
So Elizabeth, I just have a quick question. So I think last month, didn't we authorize 1,000? So you're saying this would be, that 1,000 was just for the staff thing. This would be another.
Correct. So
Okay,
we have a staff.
A retreat.
Correct.
Okay.
This is for holiday.
Okay, so they're
Two
two
separate
separate things.
things.
That I just wanted to make sure I understood that. Okay, so that 1,000 is taken care of for the retreat. This is a second that. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
And we're still finalizing the details for the staff away day. And so I'll have more information on that probably next month.
Okay.
Definitely next month, because we did set a date,
Ooh.
which I don't remember right now, but it's not until the new year.
I think it's in February.
Thank you, Allison.
Okay, Claudia?
Well, I have a really ignorant question here, but all my questions are ignorant at this point.
No.
What is our role here in authorizing an expenditure? Don't we have a budget that we're working from, and isn't there a line item for this kind of thing? Or please explain.
Okay, the board actually has an endowment. Not huge, but we have some funds so that periodically we can do things like this. Last year, we did have an away day for staff, and we did some other appreciation activities. And particularly given how pressured the staff is right now, it just, when we were discussing this, we felt that we really needed to try to do a couple of things to make the staff feel that we cared, that we do appreciate the staff. And the away day falls more in the sort of professional development category, which is something that isn't a budget line. There no modifications could pass this last budget process, so we could make up for that and provide professional development time. But we also were thinking it would be really good to have something just, oh, kitty. I'm not too easily distracted.
Sorry.
To trying to keep finding ways to let the staff know that we do appreciate them, and we're trying to make circumstances a little bit better as we can. And Susanna is an amazing staff person. She is going to be sorely missed. She's been here for a very long time, and she's our numbers lady, so that's going to be a tough one. So it's a combination of a bunch of things, but we do have some funds that we can occasionally do this for the staff, or for whatever.
I was in no way questioning the value of the activities.
no.
You don't have to explain it, but I didn't understand the financial situation.
Yeah, I'm
So
sorry. That's entirely my fault, because I think we're kind of used to it at this point, and I really should have said something. And there's the teacher speaking now. There's no such thing as a dumb question. The only dumb question is the one that you don't ask. And somebody else probably had the same question.
It's an ignorant question, not a dumb question.
No such thing. Always ask. And
so
no,
there's some kind of extra funding that the board controls, and then the staff requests specific expenditures from that.
Yeah, and it could be a variety of things. I got it. But yeah, it's an endowment from a very long time ago. And we only occasionally do things like this, once or twice a year we do something. And that's about it.
Thanks.
Okay. And any other comments, questions, discussion? No? Okay. Oh, darn. We rats. I just realized we still don't have Aaron. Geez. Well, okay.
Did we vote on that? I'm
Yes,
sorry.
we're going to do that now. I've started to count. I keep a thing to make sure that we have a majority.
Okay.
And I just looked down and said, oh, okay. So we have a motion on the floor to provide up to $1,000 for staff appreciation event that'll be, as Elizabeth described. All in favor? Then raise some.
Aye.
Okay, so that's everybody. So the motion passes unanimously. Great, thank you. And I hope it's going to be a wonderful time for the staff. At least, a nice day, a day that's just positive, and a nice honor for Susanna, who
Are we
certainly.
invited as well?
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
and so it'll be the morning of December 22nd from 10 a.m. to noon. And I actually should have also asked for permission to open late that day. So we'll be opening both of our locations. Allison, did we decide that the opening time will be noon?
Noon.
Noon, yes.
Oh,
Okay,
I don't know if we need to do a motion for that or not. I think last year we did.
did we make a
I don't know.
motion? I think it was just part of the, we said,
can't
fine,
remember.
go ahead.
Okay,
And
confirm.
then that's at your discretion.
Okay,
Yeah, and it's a one-shot thing.
yeah.
So, yeah. Okay, so that's good. Does anybody have any other old business that they would like to discuss? No, hearing none. We can move on to new business. Okay, first item, the 2024 meeting schedule. We received email from Marguerite, the town clerk, at the end of November with the request for all boards, commissions, et cetera, to set their 2024 meeting schedules. So in accordance with her instructions, we need to do that. But I reread the instructions in her recent email that detailed all of the steps that we're required to follow. And we need to add to the January 9th meeting that it will be a special meeting. Since we're filing this meeting schedule with the town clerk less than 30 days before the January meeting, which we kind of can't avoid because our meeting is less than 30 days before the next meeting, then we are required to have that be a special meeting. So we'll have to carefully consider the agenda, because for a special meeting, anything that is not on the agenda cannot be discussed. It can't be added. That would require another meeting, which we would probably really like to avoid. So did everybody receive their copy? I am drowning in paper here. I can't hold it up, but everybody got their copy of the schedule. All of the dates look fine. None of them conflict with any other calendar holiday. Elizabeth, were you, we're saying we're meeting at 6. Did you have a question about that? I remember that we have discussed this on and off before, and I don't want to do this and then have to change.
So I know that we want to start having the meetings in person, which we want to do at BPL Atrium. And if we're going to do it at BPL Atrium, we should start at 5:30, if that works for everybody. That will just make it easier. So we can still do it at 6. It's just 5:30 makes more sense at this location because of logistics.
Okay, so
but we'll put that ball in the board's court, 5:30 or 6. And then we're going to move forward with the needed equipment for that, which we need anyways. So we should be ready though to roll that out in January.
Good. Good. It's it's kind of, the town has been having trouble with Conference 5. If you've watched meetings from there, you can kind of tell. And IT is also backed up. They're having a huge number of things they have to manage. So how do you all feel about changing our meeting time? We can always adjust that for other meetings later in the year if we need to. We can always change a meeting time as long as we do it in time for the noticing date and post the information so that everybody who might be flocking to our meetings would know that there's a change in time. So discussion on this, is that a problem time for anybody?
5:30 is fine for me.
Okay,
Fine for me as well.
okay. Patrick?
Yes, I think that will work. I don't see any issues with it right now.
Okay,
But as you said, Abe, I agree, you know, if we do for one of the meetings need to change it, we can always do it as long as it's done ahead of the.
we just have to be cognizant of the noticing requirements for that, which
Mhm.
we always are. We always make sure we're in time. So, that should not be that difficult to do. I'll have to ask Erin as well and make sure that this is okay with her, but I think, hopefully she would be able to attend on Zoom if that's an issue. Okay, so we need a motion to approve the 2024 meeting schedule as amended with a 5:30 meeting start as opposed to 6 o'clock. Would somebody like to make a motion?
I'd make the motion, Ava, but could we also add that, as Elizabeth stated, that the hybrid meeting would take place at the atrium
Oh, sure,
location? Yeah,
sure. So we'll add that to the motion. Because clearly we're going to be there for a while. So yeah, let's,
we're 2 months delayed already now.
yeah, and counting.
Yeah,
Okay, so,
I'll
so the
second that.
motion is on the floor. Do we have a second?
Second.
And Bev seconds, thank you. Okay. And I'm writing those down quickly. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I should raise my hand higher. My chair is so low. Okay, motion passes. It's unanimous. Chris, if you would file that with the town clerk's office as amended, that would be great. Thank you. Okay. Great. Next item. Ugh, that's probably a metal block. Discussion of staffing deficits and impact on services. Rather than ask Elizabeth to lead off on this, I looked at a bunch of figures in the last couple of days on our staffing levels. And Chris, I think you sent this out to everybody in some form. I remember
Not
going
to
by.
everyone yet. Not to everyone yet.
Okay.
I'm going to share it on my screen.
Okay, thanks. I did the breakdown on these when you see the progression for where our staffing has gone. And in the 2022-23 fiscal year, that's the one that ended this past July, or the end of June of this past year, like July 1, we were at 19.28 full-time equivalents. That's to run everything the library does. However, for this fiscal year, at this time, we are now at 16.68, which is a drop of about 13.5%, because as people have left, we are not able to fill those positions. But with Susanna leaving this month, that means that as of January 1st, after she retires, our staffing level will be at 15.68 full-time equivalents. At that point, the drop becomes 18 2/3%. That is a significant drop in staffing level. And particularly on when you consider that it's a small staff, there does seem to be a persistent idea that right now we're only in one building so that it's not as difficult to provide staffing. We are, however, not entirely in one building. BPL Express for tech in 330 has to have staffing all the hours that it's open. Excuse me. We have story hour in town hall. We've had various activities with daycare centers, with schools. All of the daycare activities are now shifting to the atrium. Other activities are being somewhat curtailed because these figures translate into BPL being short currently more than 120 man-hours per week. And we cannot change that because right now we can't hire. So that means that those hours are nowhere to be found. Everybody at BPL has a number of hours that's associated with their jobs, with their position. We can't just say, oh yeah, well, you know, your position was 35 hours a week and now it's 50. Those are not the terms of employment. And we have no way to add any man hours by hiring replacements for the positions that are currently open. So given that the staff was already flat out providing services at the previous level of about 19.25 FTEs, there is absolutely no way to maintain what we've been doing with the staff that we have. There's no way to manage this. We can't just say you must work more hours for the same pay to people, nor should we, because that is grossly unfair to people. If anybody has a magic solution, of course, please contribute that. And that's the way the town figures FTEs. The state is more in line with the way that businesses tend to calculate FTEs. That's even more dire. It's 14.68 if you calculate this the way the state report requires, because that's the general accounting model for libraries throughout the state of Connecticut. I have no solution to this to offer. We can't create hours for people out of thin air. We don't have more people available. I'm usually rather optimistic about things. I don't see a way out of this mess. And the only answer is that we cannot continue to do everything we did because we don't have the people to do it. It's a fairly simple equation here. And that's the last thing on earth that we want to do. But we really do not have choices here. Elizabeth did have one bright spot this week. Jennifer Marshall Neely, one of our registrars of voters, saw that we would be unable to continue to provide notary services right now. And she has offered to provide those services at no charge to the public through the registrar of voters offices for a year, which is fantastic. People can access those services at the town clerk's office, but if you go to the town clerk's office, you pay $5 every time you need to have something notarized. So that is one bright spot in this picture. I know there was also an impression, and I understand the confusion, that that the library had 3 full-time librarians in the schools. When we were originally scheduled to move into that tiny place in the Wittenberry Mall, there was a question of putting 2 librarians or 3 librarians in schools for them to have a place to sit. We did not have enough room for the staff in that space. Then when that changed and we were going to the atrium, then those librarians were not housed in another building. And they still would have been doing more than servicing the schools, but at least they would have had literally a desk with a chair to sit down. But they don't exist. That never happened. So I know that impression is floating around, and it is just not the case. We don't have magical librarians somewhere that we can draw back. The librarians we do have who serve the schools are there for only a few hours a week. It's not a lot of time. So it can't solve 120 hour a week and growing deficit in our man hours. So I know staff is doing everything they can. I know that people are working extra hours anyway. And that's kind of problematic because people will burn out. I know there are people now who are having difficulty managing because they're working so many hours. And Elizabeth has told people that they really can't continue to do that it affects their health. It affects their ability to do their job, if nothing else, on a practical level. Plus, it is not fair to them. And I had one librarian tell me that she is struggling. She is so upset with the situation. And it affects all of us. One of the classes that I adore is going on hiatus because there's not enough staff. And it's a virtual class, but even for virtual classes, someone has to run the class. When we partner with outside entities, whether they're town or private, the liability would be to the library if someone were not monitoring that class and there were issues. So we have to have a staff member who monitors what's going on, and we can't do that if we want to provide the staff to, for services in the atrium, in BPL Tech, reading to the little teeny guys in the council chambers, going to events, doing pop-ups to try and continue getting people's, they're having library cards in their hands. I think, this is just not a problem that we can actually solve in any way except to provide less services. Our hours, there's also an impression that we're changing our opening time. We've always opened at 10, and that's not out of line. West Hartford opens at 10. Some of the other libraries, like right around us, also open at 10. I think Windsor. There are that we've always opened at 10. So we're not opening later, at least now, but hours may have to change. If anybody has a suggestion, great. I have been up nights looking at this, trying to find some ideas for this, and I cannot. And it's heartbreaking. And I'm a librarian. I've been a librarian since, before Chris and Allison and Elizabeth were born. And it's why I wanted to be a trustee, to try and contribute. And it's a core thing that I care about. And it's killing me to see that we just can't do everything we want to do. But it's physically just not possible. So none of this is accusatory in any way. It's not saying, this should happen, that should happen. It's just saying this is where we are. And I cannot think of any way, this is not a question of finding 10 or 20 hours of work a week here. This is a huge deficit, and that's now. January 1st, that goes up another, 35 hours a week. So then we're talking about more than 150 hours short every week that we can't staff. So discussion, we're not actually making a motion here, but I think it's important to look at this in clear, factual figures, that this is not theoretical. This is not a question of button, who's got the blame button. It's not that at all. It's just, this is where we are. Patrick?
Thank you, Chair. This is really a difficult situation, and I just don't really have all the answers either, but just a couple quick things that I was thinking about. And Elizabeth, I know because we're in the atrium, maybe the library budget this year doesn't have all the same line items that we used to have, when we were at Prosser and McMahon. But I'm wondering, is there any way you could scour that budget? And is there any possibility that money could be moved from one category to possibly support either one or two part-time positions? I mean, I don't know exactly how much you would need for, say, 2 part-timers. But I'm wondering if there's any dollars in that budget that somehow could be, transferred over to a personnel category. And, because they don't really there are no benefits for part-timers, right? It's just salary. So that was my one idea. My other idea was just to follow up. I know Penny's not on, but my other thought was, especially around that homebound program, is there any way we could get a volunteer, through the Friends that could at least help with the homebound? Maybe not work actually in the library, in the atrium, but, do the homebound program. So those were the 2 things I thought of, but other than waiting till the next budget season, which doesn't start till July 1, other than getting a big pot of money from somewhere, I don't know where that would be other than your budget. I don't know what else we could really do.
Let me actually add something here, Elizabeth, before you have to do this. Sorry. Patrick.
Yeah.
My concern there is that the council has imposed a freeze because of funds, the deficit of funds. I would not like to intrude on their authority. And that freeze goes to, I don't know if the vote was taken. The last I heard, they were looking to extend the freeze to May of 2024, and then to add it to the 24-25 budget. So it's
well,
it's not, I'm not sure. I think we might need, even if we could find some funds, which
the money is all in our budget.
well, that's
all of these positions were put in our budget.
Okay,
so the money is there. We just have not been given a green light to move forward with it.
Okay, so the money is already there. You just can't.
Right. And so essentially, so Chris, Allison, and I met with the town manager and human resources to plead our case, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And the town manager has the authority to okay positions to move forward. But the money is in our budget. And the problem is, though, I know I just got word from our colleagues in Simsbury, they just went out for part-time librarians, came back empty-handed. This is a challenge hiring for, there's not a lot of people to hire right now in the state of Connecticut. So that's a problem. Oh, and as for the homebound, Patrick, so we know we've always been talking about, the liability with homebound and just create a lot of a stress. Also we've been announcing in our newsletter recently about, the reductions of service. And I did get a reach out from the Lions, who are interested in helping us some way. So I'm hopeful that there might be some solutions there.
Okay.
And also with the friends. So I think that, yeah, we can have, the reference part be done in the library and then maybe work something out on that end.
That's nice.
Because you're
That's
right,
good.
like, the vulnerable people who can't get here, like
Yeah.
that, so, and BPL
Right.
Atrium, my staff is specially trained to meet the public where they are at. And when the council, I think that these are things that we need to work on, if that makes sense, explaining
Yeah.
why we do some things the way we do them.
So would
And
it
that-
help going to,
I'm
oh,
sorry.
sorry, Ava.
No,
I
go
was
ahead.
gonna say, would it help going to when they started up again, I guess in 2024? Ken McClary, I believe, Councilor McClary still heads up the finance subcommittee. Would it make sense to go to that committee or ask to be put on that agenda to again try to plead your case to see if it is possible? I mean, if the funds are in your budget and they don't have to be reallocated or something like that, is it possible? When you show these numbers and the fact that you're down so much FTE count versus where you should be, and there's really if there's some middle ground that you could do some kind of hiring, on a limited basis. I don't, and I'm not saying fill every vacancy, but if they could take that forward and bring that to the council and say, yes, tell the town manager to allow them to at least fill something.
Thank you, Patrick.
That's my only other idea. I don't know. Because maybe, Ken and that finance subcommittee need to be made more aware of what the situation is.
I think that I worry that there was a misunderstanding that when we came to BPL Atrium, we would be rolling back services. That was never the case.
No,
We want to still serve to the best of our ability during this time. And I know that my staff is very innovative and intentional in how they provide services.
Yeah.
But where we are now, we are just, and I think the other part of this is the invisible work of libraries. I think people do not understand, they come and they see a service desk and they're like, oh, you just need somebody at the service desk. But every single program, book, BPL online resource requires work for that to function. Technology,
all those tech visits.
Yes, there's so many things going on behind the scenes, the invisible work of libraries. And I was just asking my library director colleagues, I'm like, has anybody ever summarized the invisible work for their stakeholders? Because, I understand if you don't know libraries, you don't get it. You're like, why do they need so many staff? But there's just so much going on in order to provide service. And I need to reiterate how absolutely hard it is to provide equitable service to 21,000 residents.
Mm-hmm.
It's an impossible task fully staffed. And when, in our current situation, it's even worse. And, we're down 9 positions now. When Susanna leaves, that'll be 10 positions, 2 full-time, 8 part-time. And, we had somebody call out sick today, and we're getting to the point where somebody calling out sick might mean we have to close a location because we just don't have the backups. And it was interesting because putting together this number, if you look back, we used to have, you look at the part-time number, we have 15 right now.
Right. Mm-hmm.
It used to be almost double. So, not all those people worked every month, but if somebody called out or something happened, you had a list where you can go down and find people. And it's really challenging. And the burnout part of this is real. We have an uptick in unhappy patrons because we can't provide all the things we used to provide. And so frontline staff is hearing it the most. And so I'm concerned. I don't want a domino effect to happen.
Mm-hmm.
We are also at the same time thinking about our future, and all of my staff are specially trained. We have especially all the social justice training and equity training we have done over the past couple of years. To have a staff member leave, Narcan training, suicide awareness training, reference training, technology training. I could go on and on and on. The staff is so has such a breadth of so, and that's the other thing. So Susanna's leaving. That's 43 years of experience. If we get that person, it's going to be 6 months to a year before they're even fully trained to do all of those things. It's not a one-to-one, you know? So,
Mhm.
Yeah, and
yes.
there are a couple other issues. Before we could let pretty much anybody do homebound services or whatever as volunteers, we would definitely need to talk to the town manager and probably hear from the legal department about liability. Because if they're representing the library, and any, it's something as simple as dinging their car, or heaven forbid, of course, we need to be very sure how that works. Because it's bad enough that we have had library staff driving their own cars all these years and doing, deliveries and whatever, because the funding hadn't been there for, a staff car or bookmobile or whatever. But to have that be someone who is not a town employee doing that, I would want to be very sure that that has been passed by the town attorney's firm,
Right.
because that cannot come back on the town as an unexpected liability of any kind, which could be large. And another thing that I think people don't see is technical services in the background. Just the simplest thing. Covers don't just jump onto books. They don't come that way when you take them out of the box. Books have to be processed. Books have to be shelved. All these things that they take time, and I love the idea of volunteers for some things, but at a certain point, as wonderful as volunteers are, and I do love them. Even in school, I did have a couple of people who volunteered. But there's limit to what they can do because they really aren't trained in all of what goes on to do that. There are endless things that you don't see happening before that book hits the shelf or the file is in our digital resources. And that also includes the fact that people need the assistance with a lot of things. So if it's definitely worth asking. If we don't
Yeah.
ask, the answer isn't going to be sure. Go ahead.
A lot more questions than answers, though, right?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's a really bitter pill to try and swallow here.
Mhm.
And it's not like we're saying, hey, give us stuff. What libraries do with all the stuff that we have is give it away. We just want to provide service to everybody in Bloomfield who needs something or wants something. But when you're sitting with someone who doesn't have a resume, can't, and if anybody's ever tried to navigate an online employment service or online medical services, where you have to upload forms, you have to know what you're doing. That's very time intensive, and that's something that is literally helping people live. People have gotten jobs because of help from our staff. People who couldn't figure out how to do that on their own and they asked for help, they got the help. You know what it's like navigating technology when you're more used to it. For somebody who is not and who didn't grow up clicking something, when you go to the eye doctor and they give you that clicker test and you're thinking, I didn't do this when I was a kid. My kids did this. Multiply that times a million when people are trying to use systems that they don't have experience with. We don't want to leave people in the lurch. What we do is serve, not refuse. And it's just staggering to be in this position. So, anybody has any ideas? Certainly, Patrick, I think what you've suggested is worth pursuing. In the same way that some other things have maybe been misunderstood, there's been like a cross message on, who works where and how many people and whatever. Maybe people just don't realize the level that we're at, that it is dire. And that this is certainly something that affects the quality of life for an awful lot of people in Bloomfield. And among them, some of the most fragile people in Bloomfield who don't have another way to manage. So I think we should pursue your ideas. Thank you. That's great. If anybody has any more ideas, do not hesitate. You know, the more desperate you get, the more you will have to try. But, you know, if the money's already there and there's a way for that to be accessed, even for some of the positions, then we have to keep trying. I have dreaded that entry in this agenda all week. Okay. Is there any further discussion? It's the season of miracles. Who knows? Maybe something will happen. So does anyone have any additional new business that they would like to bring forward? Okay, hearing none. Are there any other attendees, Chris, such that somebody might want to use the second citizen statement and petitions time?
If anybody wants to, they can raise their hand and we'll unmute them. I don't believe so.
Okay. Okay, board comments. If any board members have comments they would like to make this additionally, this is the time. Or are we all steamed out? Claudia.
This is very brief. I made it to the atrium. I saw the library. Yay.
Yay.
And the reason I knew I was in the right place because that book drop was there.
People don't realize just how important the book drop is. What an amazing thing.
And everybody I talked to was very nice.
Good.
Really helpful, really. It was really a positive experience.
Great.
Claudia, next time you're in, make sure you ask for one of us. We'd love to talk with you and give you a tour.
I'll come back.
Okay.
Good. That's great. Good. We needed some good news. That's excellent. Okay. Anybody else? Okay. If not, then we have two sets of minutes that need approval. The October 10th, 2023 minutes. Does anyone have any corrections or additions to the minutes of October 10th? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the October 10th, 2023 minutes as submitted?
So moved.
Okay, Patrick, do we have a second?
Second.
And Bev seconds, thank you. All in favor of approving the October 10th, 2023 minutes as submitted?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, good, that's unanimous, thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
And
Yeah, always.
approval of minutes of November 14th, 2023. Does anyone have any corrections or additions to the minutes of November 14th, 2023? No? Okay, hearing none. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes of November 14th, 2023 as submitted?
So moved.
Okay, Bev moves. Do we have a second? Claudia seconds. Thank you. Okay, all in favor of accepting the November 14th, 2023 minutes as submitted?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, anything else for the good of the country here? If not, I want to thank everybody. I know some of these meetings are pretty difficult these days, and the effort that everybody puts in is much appreciated. And I don't want to forget to wish everyone a happy holiday, a happy new year to you and yours. And our next meeting will be next year.
Wow,
Hard to believe.
very hard.
Okay, and remember, it will be a special meeting. So if there's something you'd like to bring up, make sure that you let Chris or Elizabeth or me or somebody, Allison, let one of us know so that it gets on the agenda, because otherwise we cannot add it to a special meeting. Okay. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
They'll move.
See, Claudia is catching on. This is everybody's favorite motion. Do we have a second?
Second,
I think
Yeah,
Patrick
two.
beat you out,
2
Viv.
seconds.
I think so too.
Yeah, okay. Unless there's an objection? No, hearing none, then we are adjourned.